All right, welcome back. Today we're just going to hang out and chat a little bit and work on a Stripe sample, specifically this one here for using checkout for subscriptions. There's a couple of things that we need to update, and also I want to add support for the customer portal. The customer portal is a Stripe hosted page where users can manage their billing. So after they create a subscription, they can then go and manage their billing on a Stripe hosted surface. And so we've got a couple of things to do that I wrote out here. But generally, we're just going to kind of hang out. And if folks want to come and chat, then totally welcome. And yeah, we'll see how far we get through these. So, first one is we want to remove the client only examples. This is something that's being deprecated, and we really want to recommend that you use the full integration. The client only is really limited and doesn't support most of the features that you would usually want and expect from checkout. So we're going to remove that client only example. We want to add support for the billing portal. So it's really simple to just add a redirect to the billing portal. And so we'll go through and add support for that. We have zero tests right now as part of this sample. So in other Stripe samples, we've started by adding just like a really simple RSpec test that lives in the root. And all it does is poke at the servers. So we are going to make a simple request to the server and then some assertions about what we get back from the server. Most of these are using the same client. Let's see about this one. In this one, we only have a vanilla JS, which has like HTML and JavaScript on the client. So we don't have separate examples for a React client and an HTML client. So all of the client side interfaces are going to be making requests to the server, and the servers are where the language is going to change. So we want to just like make a test that pokes at the server. And then you'll notice that if you look in the server examples here for this checkout single subscription Stripe sample, we don't have support for Go or .NET servers yet. So I think it might be kind of a stretch to add support for Go and .NET to this example. And so, yeah, so let's start off with just removing client only. And I was kind of like part of my intention here was that I want to show folks how they can just make pull requests to open source repositories. So this is a Stripe samples. The Stripe samples organization on GitHub is a collection of these end-to-end integrations. And they're managed just kind of like by a super small group here within Stripe who wants to provide examples to you so that you can go and see exactly the pieces and how they fit together end to end rather than just the code snippets that are in the docs. And we have a couple of the full integration builder guides, which are incredible. And as we sort of migrate to those will become the gold standard for how we want to present and learn about how to build a Stripe integration. But for now, these Stripe samples are a really helpful and powerful tool. But they're hard to maintain. We have tons of them, and we've recently started getting some really excellent contributions from outside folks. And so if you're interested in just sort of like dipping your toe into open source and you want to just try out open source, Stripe samples is an interesting spot to start. And we're generally really open to contributions. So so let's see here. The first thing I wanted to do was remove all the references to this client only implementation. So I'm gonna go here in GitHub. When you do this green drop down here, you can find the URL to clone the repository, and then from the terminal, I'm going to say git clone, and then paste in that URL, and that will download the code from GitHub and create a directory here called checkout single subscription. This is where all the code lives. And for now, because we don't want this client only, I'm just going to delete that directory. Now, there's a couple of things that are depending on that client directory, and that is here in CLI.json, we show two different integration types. We show the client and server and the client only. So I'm going to delete client only. And then because we only have one integration, I'm going to also move the client and server directories up to the parent where we have just like one Because we don't have multiple integrations here that we're showing, we're just going to move them up. So let's see. So move this up a directory. And then I want to move this one also up a directory. And then we'll just get rid of this. So the way that these are structured is if there's multiple different integration types, so client and server versus client only, then we have each of the integration types in their own directory. Whereas if we're only showing one integration type, then we can put the client and server directories at the top level. So then I want to delete that. Okay. So let's see. So I think we might need to also modify something else. So I'm going to check in Stripe samples. Let's see. Developer office hours. Does this one have it? No. Okay. Stripe samples. Let's just find a Stripe sample where we only show one of these. Nope. That shows two examples. Save a card after payment. That shows two integrations. Let's see. Grab pay. Okay, client and server, and then CLI.json. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so we just named the integration main, and that's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to name this main. And this CLI.json file is used for the Stripe CLI when we're installing Stripe samples from the Stripe CLI. We can say Stripe samples create, and then the name of the Stripe sample. So check out single subscription, and then it'll prompt us for what client we want to use, and then what server we want to use. So in this case, and it'll even show you like which integration. So in this case, now we're removing the client only integration, and we want to show just, so this should drop us directly into picking a server language because there's only one integration and there's only one client. So we will now have Java, Node, PHP Slim, PHP, Python, Ruby. Okay, let's also update the README. There were quite a few references to client only here in the README. So let's dive in and check those out. Okay. Okay, so client, see if we can find client only here. So see a sample of the integration live there. And okay, that should continue to work. The demo's running. Okay, so in demo mode, you enter 4242 as the test card in that CVC. This one will test 3D secure. In fact, I actually want to use a different card for 3D secure. So this, yeah, so that was the old 3D secure card. This is the newer one that tests SCA and should be a little bit more stable. Okay, so we're localization in, it's actually localized in, I think, 25 different languages now. Let's go check that out. Double check here. Double check, check out. Okay, yeah, so it supports over 25 languages. So let's see, built-in Apple Pay, Dynamic 3DS, plans to support more payment methods. Okay, so that's not really a feature, so we'll remove that. So more features to, okay, so if you want to see more features, go check out the documentation, the checkout documentation. I think this might have actually moved. So let's look at that too. And let's see. HTTPS, payments, checkout, subscriptions. Right, so this is dropping you now into the fixed price subscription guide. So I'm actually going to just leave that for now. We need to come back and modify that for sure. So there's two integrations. There's not two integrations anymore. There's just one integration, and that is the recommended path for using client and server. The integration uses the checkout sessions API. That looks correct for additional functionality. Okay, and then here is our list of sort of features, but we're going to remove client only since we're not using that, and then we can remove this table cell, and we need to remove one more row in each of these. Okay. And then how to run locally. So does not include two. This sample includes 5 server implementations, Node, Ruby, Python. Okay. All the steps below to install. So for client only, we don't need this because we're deleting this. clone and configure the sample. Okay. The Stripe CLI is the fastest way to clone and configure the sample to run locally. That's right, using the Stripe CLI. If you haven't already installed the CLI, follow these instructions. That looks, actually, you know what? We have some better and new instructions for installing and working with the Stripe CLI directly from, yeah, in the Stripe documentation. So let's refer to that instead. It's a little better. Okay. In the project, the CLI is useful for cloning samples and locally testing webhooks and Stripe integrations. Cool. In your terminal, run this Stripe samples create checkout single subscription. That looks good. It'll walk you through picking your integration type, server and client languages. So it'll walk you through picking your server and client languages, and configuring your .env file for you. Okay, that's good. Installing cloning manually. If you don't want to use Stripe CLI, you can clone this like we just did, and then you copy the .env file into the a file named .env in the folder that you want to use for the server. Okay, that's good. You'll need a Stripe account. Go there. You're going to set your publishable key and your Stripe secret key. And then we have a couple other environment variables we need to configure. Static dir, base price ID, pro price ID, domain. Okay. Create products and prices. So it uses 2 price IDs in the checkout page. Okay. Follow the instructions on how to run, pick your server language, and then follow the instructions in the README for how to run that one. So for example, here's how you do it with the node. And then we talk about how to test your webhook endpoint locally. So the CLI is going to print out the webhook secret to the console, and you want to set that in your settings. Okay. Why do we pick these frameworks? Why did we pick okay, what happened to plans and SKUs? Right. Okay. So I think we're good here now on the README. Did checkout. Let's see, update. No, remove client only. Removes reference to the client only integration. Okay. What are folks working on today? What are you guys up to? Yeah, welcome. Happy to have you here. Push. All right, so let's push. Okay. So we are going to push this branch and then request someone to review it for us with us. And then we'll see how that goes. Okay, so here in another browser, I am going to open a pull request and say it removes reference to the client only integration. And so yeah, now we're just kind of double checking and spot checking that we updated the README and things as expected. One thing that I wanted to do also was try to preview this file. Is that possible? Yeah, because I usually I mess up this the table, but it looks like we got that right. Client and server, that's a little confusing now. So maybe we want to update that client, and so let's just remove that. I have a little alias. GGG means git commit dash dash no edit, git commit dash dash amend dash dash no edit. So I can just like add on to things that I've already done. Because I find myself like going to GitHub to review the PR, and then once I'm like in the middle of reviewing it, I realize that I want to change something small. So yeah, so this GGG is an alias for git commit dash dash amend dash dash no dash edit. It's kind of handy. Okay, so oh right, now we got to push force. Sometimes they use force with lease, which says like if nothing has changed upstream, then override it. But if someone else is working with me, then I won't accidentally overwrite their stuff. Okay, so now we're going to remove this as a client integration, and that is looking, I think it's looking pretty good. And there is someone on my team named Thomas Merrick who have actually requested that we do this. So I'm going to use our question mark to assign this at them. T-Merrick at Stripe. And then I'm going to add the note that says that we removed the client only integration. And we also updated the README. We're going to create a pull request, and this will notify Thomas. I used these square brackets because I wanted to make checkboxes, but it looks like that did not work. I think I needed spaces. Yeah, there we go. Okay. But I actually did the things, so let's check them off. This is a really cool feature of GitHub. Okay, so now Thomas will take a look at that at some point when they have some bandwidth. And yeah, so let's go check out, let's make another branch and go back to our to-dos here. Add billing portal and add a test. Let's start with adding a test just so that we have like a little bit of something to go on. So I want to do this from the root, rspec init. Can I do that? Okay, that didn't make, is it rspec -- init? I wanted to make the directory. Okay, there we go. So it makes a couple of things for you. It makes a spec directory, creates a spec helper, and that gives us sort of a starting place. So within the spec helper, we can make like a maybe server spec.rb, which will contain our tests. And for now, we're just going to create just like one big test that will make assertions against what the server endpoints should be responding with. So we can say here, I don't know, let's say describe, we need rspec, describe the server APIs. It works as expected. Okay, just something super, super simple to get us going. Let's see, expect true to equal false. Let's just get a failing test just so we have some feedback here. Okay, so we expected false, we got true. That looks good. All right, now what we need to do is in another tab, I'm going to start with Ruby because that is my favorite language. So we're going to jump into server, and then I'm going to copy my environment variable, my environment file here. Okay, and I did not intend for you to see that. So I'll have to go back and edit and like delete all of that and roll those keys and stuff. That's unfortunate, but that's okay. I meant to do copy.env to here. Okay, so in my environment variables, I have all my API keys that I will now go and roll. But this should at least let us start testing the server. So I should be able to say, Ruby start the server, but let me just go check and see what I exposed here. Okay, test keys. All right, test keys. Okay, so nothing too bad got exposed. So I think we're all right to keep going. All right, let's keep rocking it. So from here, we want to say bundle install to pull down dependencies, and then we're going to say Ruby server to start the server. And okay, so now that the server is started, we should be able to head over to localhost, localhost 4242, and I expect to be able to see this page. And nothing is happening because if we curl localhost 4242, we get back empty. That's weird. Index.html. Okay, Sinatra doesn't know this, did he? All right, so okay, my expectation is that right now we probably have the wrong setting for in the environment variables for the client, for where the client lives. So I'm just going to edit that real quickly. And we want the client to be sort of up and over 1. Okay, so let's see if this helps. Restart the server, come back over here. All right, so this is this is the UI. We've got a basic subscription and we've got a pro subscription. Now the environment variables, you also need to set the basic price ID and the premium price ID so that they pull these in. Now, if we click on $5 per month, we should be redirected, and we are not redirected because what's going on? All right, 500, that's good. And the price ID is null. Okay, so let's head back over to the implementation here. Take a look. So in the Ruby server, we've got our, okay, so let's see how this is all set up. We've got static directory and this checkout session ID. This is fetching the checkout session. Setup, we should be getting the basic price and the pro price when we call setup. Let's just confirm that's happening. So if we refresh the page and look for a request coming in for setup, I do. And then basic price and pro price are null. Okay, so this means that I need a basic price ID and a pro price ID. Okay, so let's see. So where do we get those IDs from? Well, you can use the Stripe CLI. I can say Stripe prices list and just show me those that work for the, we only want to see recurring prices. So I can filter by type and say recurring. And this should only show me price IDs that are recurring. And so I'll grab that price ID, which is for $10 a month. Recurring. So here we see the recurring hash, and we can tell the interval is monthly. Okay, so I'm going to use that price ID as my basic price ID. So in the Stripe samples in the README, again, down here, we specified that you need to set a basic price ID and a pro price ID. So that's what I'm going to do now. So basic price ID is equal to that. And then the pro price ID, we'll just find one that's a little bit higher than $10. So $14, sure. Okay. Again, a monthly price. So I'm going to come back over and say pro price ID is equal to that. Okay, so now we've got these two things set. And our domain is going to be localhost 4242. All right, let's restart our server and see if we are getting back what we expect when we make that that setup get request from the browser. I'm going to refresh the page here. And create checkout session is still failing. Domain. Okay, what's going on here? So I'm just going to print out, while we're in setup, let's just put env domain, and same thing for like basic price and pro price and static dir, just so we get a sense of like what's happening here when we make that get request. So the setup, yeah, we're still getting back not what we expect. Did I restart the server? Okay, restart the server. Here we go. Okay, and when we make the call to setup, okay, now we're getting back prices and we're getting back the publishable key. That looks way better. Click on $5 a month and nada. Okay, what's going on here? So, okay, so we're printing out the right stuff. These look great. That looks expected. Okay, so now what's happening is, so on the index.html page, somewhere we are trying to create a session and it's continuing to fail. And it says here, no method plus for nil class, env domain. Did I not spell that right? Domain. That should totally work. Success URL. Okay, so let's go take a look. All right, so we're going to drill down into create checkout session here. Env domain. That should exist. Is this spelt differently? No. All right, I'm just going to print it out. Puts env domain and restart the server. And then when we make this create checkout session call, we should be printing out the domain. Yeah, but it is not happening. Clear this, refresh the page. Okay, create checkout session. Should happen when we click this button. Okay, 401. Getting warmer, I guess. Unauthorized. Interesting. Okay. All right. So, all right. So at least the domain is being created, but what's going on with that 401? Okay. So we're creating the domain. We're reading this. We're creating the session, and then we're redirecting. Why are we getting a 401? So we are sending price ID. That is a price. That's a real price. And we're getting into this. Okay, so let's see if the API call is returning successfully. So we can say puts session.id, and that should render the ID of the checkout session. We'll restart the server and restart this page. Clear this, click on the button. We get another 401. And nothing is happening here. Okay, so what is going on? We got to take a look at that create checkout session method. I'm actually going to just drop in a debugger in the hopes that we can break on this. Okay. So then, and also I'm going to just exclude and limit interaction that is required from the front end. I'm just going to hit this API endpoint directly. And I'm going to pass in this price ID. So rather than using the client, I'm going to say curl -x post to localhost 4242 / create checkout session. And with this data, okay. And we get back an error. Did I mean debugger? I did. Okay. Let's see, debug. Server is started. We hit the endpoint. It should be creating a checkout session. And we're in here. Okay, next, data. Okay, so request.body.read. Okay, because I didn't set the content type. So let's set that here. -h. Content type is application JSON. Okay, now if I say request.body.read, I get the body. Good. Okay, and now, what is going on here? Why am I entering a rescue block? Is it not parsing? It's not body. Not read. Okay, so what is going on here? This is interesting. Okay. JSON.parse. That seems to be the right thing. Bugger back in there and then see if we can break in there again. Okay, content type is right. JSON.parse. Let's just make sure this is the right. Okay, yeah. So then request.body.read should give us that. And then if we JSON parse this, what's going on? Why isn't it? Okay, so JSON.parse that thing. Unexpected token. Oh, you know what? I bet it's because I didn't form this with quotes around the ID of the property here in the JSON object. Okay, so next. Okay, now we have data. Now the data looks like the right thing. Env domain. That looks correct. So what's going on now? Params. Okay. In the world. Okay, let's see. So we're sending the right type of request, but now we're getting to the point where we're creating the checkout session. All right, let's restart this. we are creating the checkout session, or we are like ready to make the API request here. So let's make this. Okay, that looks correct. That looks correct. But we're failing here. So this is in the Sinatra base. So what is going on? Okay. At Sinatra.error.params. Yeah, we're just returning a 401, but I'm not sure what's going on. It's like something is failing as part of this process. So okay, so we're making an API call here. Is our API key? Our API key is being set globally. Okay. So what? Okay, I'm going to wrap this in a try catch. Let's try this again. And okay, so we're about to make the API call. We don't get the API call. Authentication error, expired API key. Oh my word. Okay, so I updated I rolled my API keys because of another demo recently, and this came back to bite me. Okay, so let me have just a second to update my API keys here. So one moment. Yeah. So I'm going to the Stripe dashboard to my API keys, and then I'm going to copy my publishable key and update that. And then I also rolled my secret API key as part of another demo. Super excited to share that with y'all soon. Let's see. Can I not? Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Reveal my key so that I can see it, so that I can change it, so that I can run this as expected. Okay. So coming back over here. Okay. And all right. So that shows like a need for better error handling, if nothing else. Am I right? All right. So we've got new API keys in the environment variables. We're restarting the server, and I'm going to make our test request again. And we got back a checkout session. So we are back in business. Let's go run it on the client. If we click our $5 per month, we should redirect. And we do, as expected, $10 a month to subscribe to this demo thing. Okay, so your payment was canceled, restart the demo. This is all, okay, so now that this is working as expected, let's write a little test. In the spec helper, I'm going to add some helpful stuff here down at the bottom. Subscription use cases. So we wrote a little sample test here that we've been using for a couple of things, and I want to just kind of like copy what we've done already. And I think we need REST client, and yeah, sure. I think all of those should be helpful in building and debugging this stuff. Okay, so the way this works is that we added some methods. One is called get, one is get JSON, one is post JSON. For the most part, this kind of gives us at least some sort of smoke tests that we can run on the Stripe samples. And so if we look at the different types of requests that we're making here, so within the server directory, if we go to Ruby, and in the server, we have a get for the index. So maybe we have, let's write a test that says get slash response is going to be equal to this thing. And then we want to just like expect that the response not to be nil. We should be making a get request to slash. And I think, I can't remember if I need to add that helper over here. I think I need to like require spec helper, right? In my per seat thing, possibly? No. Maybe. Okay, cool. And then just for fun, let's p response. And I can't remember if we're sending back the status and the response separately. It looks like we're just sending back like the raw REST client response. That's totally fine just for like loads index page. Okay. And then the next test that we want to write is for getting the checkout session. Actually, this is down the road a little bit because we need a checkout session ID in order to do that. So let's call setup and assert that we get back a publishable key, basic price, and pro price. So we want to say like response is equal to, I believe it's a get, right? Yeah, get route to slash setup. And we expect that response, actually this is going to be get JSON too. Expected the response to have key. Well, hold on a sec. Let's see. I believe this one might give us back the status code and the JSON separately. No, it doesn't. Okay, odd. All right. Expect to have key. And then we want to just make sure these keys match. I think it's basic price and pro price. Okay, so that should hit the API and okay, and then we can look in the server log just to make sure that it's like actually doing what we're thinking. So it's making a get for slash, it's making a get for slash setup. So those are looking good. All right, now let's make a post to create checkout session. So we want to say resp is equal to post JSON to slash create checkout session with some data. And this is going to be the price ID, which needs to be a price that we've created. And for now, how should we do this? I'm just going to hard code it because we'll just keep it easy. Keep it simple. Keeping it simple. Okay, cool. And then we got back, right. So when we do a post, that's when we get back two different things. So we get the response and we get the status. We want to assert that the status is equal to 200. And that the response has the key ID, I believe. Right. Not have the key ID. What does it have? Session ID. Okay, so the response has the ID session ID. Okay. All right, then let's see. Yes, so we should be able to just use session.id here. Ruby should give us the, or Stripe Ruby, the client library will wrap up the instance of Stripe checkout session and expose its IDs as getters that we can access. But we also should respond with some sort of error here that is in a standardized format. If for some reason creating the checkout session doesn't work, like your API key is expired or what have you. So what we should do is return some error object and for 400. So what the error should be, I think it's like error and then maybe message. And the message should be e.message, at least to start. So if for some reason we tried to make a request and it fails, then this is what we should get back. So if we try to make the same request, but we don't pass in a price, for instance, this is like with valid price. And then this one is going to be without price. So if we don't pass a price, then it should fail and we should get back a 400 status code and we should have the key error. And we should also be able to like drill into that and ensure that the error message that we got back was some sort of like somehow matched. Oh, I haven't restarted the server. Okay, let's Oops. What happened here? Okay, I had two instances of the editor running. So we deleted the thing, and what did we get back? We got back a massive rack error here. This is not what we wanted. Okay. All right. So instead of that, we want, you're seeing this error because you've enabled show exception setting. Okay. So is REST client going to raise an exception if we return an error? And I think it is, but we should still be able to catch that error. Okay. Post JSON, we've got our path and we've got our payload. We're making a request. We're going to send post JSON to create checkout session with no price ID. We expect the status to have 400. All right, let's see here. All right, it's failing, and are we going to be able to see what's going on? It's quite difficult to find the beginning of this mess. So you're seeing this error because you've enabled show exceptions. I get it. I got it. Okay. So 500 internal server error. Is it throwing a 500 over here? It's not. It is. They're both returning 200. Okay, so how do I return 400 with Sinatra? Okay, actually, we also have some prior art here in the subscription use cases. So let's take a look in the server for Ruby and see how we were handling errors. Oh, halt. Okay. And then the status code goes at the beginning. All right, I'm just going to copy that. That seems like that's what we're doing everywhere. So that should totally work now, right? And okay, good, great. So expected 400 got 200. Yeah, so let's return a 400. I think that's what we want to do. Expected 200 or expected 400 got 200. I thought, yeah, okay, so I need to just save that and restart the server. Okay, all right. And let's try it again. Hey folks, welcome. Welcome. Happy to chat if you have questions about Stripe, about your Stripe integration. Mostly hanging out, working on this Stripe sample today. We just added a couple of tests to make sure the server works. I ran into an issue where my API key was expired. I actually rolled it as part of another demo and forgot to update. So we added some error handling to the sample here in Ruby. And now we have some expectations around what that error will do and look like. And we're working our way through the API endpoints that are implemented already in the sample. We're just adding some tests to it so that we can add some more tests. Trag says, thumbs up. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, this is cool. Yeah, so you can see the thumbs up. Nice, nice. Cool. Yeah. So now the next thing that we want to do is, now that we've sort of tested and fixed up the Ruby example, I'm not going to mess with webhooks right now because we don't have a great way to write a test around those for Stripe samples yet. But what we've got so far is a great start. So now the next thing we want to do is let's fire up the tests and the servers in every other language, and then make sure that this just works in all the languages. So I'm going to leave my my instance here of Vim up with the spec running, and then I'm going to change from Ruby into Python. So let's go jump over to Python. here. Okay. Git -b add spec. Okay, so I can add all the files that I added with git add -A. Now, if you're here hanging out thinking about Hacktoberfest and open source for Hacktoberfest, we're going to tag some of the issues and some of the questions that you might be able to tackle with Hacktoberfest in Stripe samples. So if you're interested in participating, that is a great way to start, and we'll sort of like give you a place to enter if you're interested in jumping into that. So. Okay, I actually don't want this, so I'm going to edit the .git config git ignore so that we ignore all bybug history, because we don't need to commit that. That's just like our debugging history. Then I can restore staged for that file, and we no longer see it. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we'll push up that branch, and then we're going to go to the next item here, which is going to be so we're going to test out Python and Ruby next. So I'm going to say adds spec. Actually, we'll open the branches or the PRs later, because we want to see if Thomas can go review that first one where we remove all the client only stuff. All right, so Python. Let's jump into Python and do that next. So from here, we'll go to server, cd Python. And so for Python, we want to set up a virtual environment. So we're going to say Python 3-m venv. This is how I do it. And then you can say source venv bin activate. So source venv bin activate should work. And now we have a virtual environment here, and I can say pip3 install -r and then requirements. This pulls in all the dependencies, similar to like npm install or bundle install. If you're familiar with either of those, this is how we do it in Python. Okay, now I should be able to say server Python server py, and that should fire up the same exact server example. Okay, so we've got some more errors here. That's okay. What I forgot to do also was copy in my .env file that we worked on in Ruby here in Python. So let's see if that was the issue. It was not the issue. So type error, required field type ignores missing from module. Okay, so let's crack it open. Let's see what's going on. Go into the server, and we go into Python, and we go into server.py, and let's see. So where is this error coming from? Oh, you know what? I think this is an issue with the version of this workzug library. And so I believe we need to bump that version in requirements.txt to 1.0.1. And sorry if you are encountering that. In some of the Stripe samples, we need to go through and update them. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's reinstall that. So pip3 install -r requirements -r. All right. And where did we go? So that's installed successfully. Python 3 server.py. Okay, the server is running now. All right, so let's just run our tests and see what fails. See if anything fails. All right, cool. Okay, this is great. 403 instead of 400. That's closer to 200. All right, so we go to our server, and similar stuff happening as we have happening in Ruby. We are making a GET request to the root route, which is returning that index.html, same one that we're returning in Ruby. And then similarly, our /setup is getting us all of this same data back from environment variables and returning those. So that all looks good. I'm just going to change the format there a little bit. And okay, so then we have our get checkout session. Oh, you know what? We should add a test for that. Let's add a test for that. So after we get back our response and it has a checkout session ID, let's actually change the order of this so that we have the failing one first and then the successful one second. And when we have that checkout session ID, we should be able to also hit the retrieve checkout session endpoint, which is a JSON get. So we're going to say get, and this should just be, we want to get the endpoint, which is /checkout session, like so, and we want to pass in the session ID in the query string params. So here we can say, what is it again? Oh, checkout session, checkout dash session. And then the session ID is equal to, let's use string interpolation here. And we're going to say that's equal to this thing, which is the previous response and its session ID, which, yeah, okay, so get should not have any extra payload or anything. And then the response should be, what is the response? The response should be the entire checkout session. So it should have an ID, and its ID, so expect resp to dot ID to equal the one that we passed in. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, we still are getting back that error. So we're not getting far enough. So we need to update this. We have a try and we have an accept. Let's make this a 400. And the error JSONify that, sure. I mean, yeah, we're not really doing anything with the errors, but we want to make sure that the errors are consistent in their shape that we're sending back. So I'm going to make this error. I'm going to make it a dictionary where the error points at this other thing, which has a message. And the message is the stringified error. And what that allows us to do is make sure that we're consistent. And let's restart the server and then run our tests again. Hey, test is passing. Fantastic. Okay, so Python, hey, Python is looking pretty good. All right, and yeah, so let's move on. So let's go to, what's the next language? PHP, Node, Java. What would you like to see? Anyone online with votes? Any requests? Give you a minute. PHP. PHP is very popular, very, very popular language. Let's copy copy our environment variables again. So let's go into PHP and copy our python.env into here. And then we are using Composer to install the dependencies. So we have a composer.json and a composer.lock. So we should be able to say composer install. And this is the same thing again to pull down dependencies. It's like installing with requirements or installing with the npm or bundler, or now you've seen how to do it with PHP. So now that we have our requirements installed, take a look at composer.json because it usually has like a start, or sometimes it has a start command, which will fire up the server. This one doesn't. So let's just take a look at what we've got going on here. So we have in this public directory, we have a whole bunch of things, including each of the different routes. So for the, let's see, in the public directory in index.html, are we actually calling .php? Okay, we don't have, okay, we have a separate. So this one is actually making the request to the route with .php appended to the end because we're using vanilla PHP. So you know what, I'm actually gonna save that one for later. It's a little bit unique in the way that it's set up. So let's go into PHP Slim instead and work on that one. We have two different versions for PHP. PHP Slim implementation is going to be much more similar to, say, a Node or Sinatra than the vanilla PHP version. And the reason is that the vanilla PHP version requires that we are making requests to like something .php instead of just like the route that we would in Node or these other languages. Okay, so now that we have our dependencies installed, this one does have a start script, so we should be able to say like composer start. No, we need our environment variable cp python.env to here. So if we say composer start, that should fire up the server, and it does. Now let's run our tests against PHP. And we got a failure. Great. We got the same failure. Oh, right. We probably haven't implemented any error handling. That's perfect. Okay. All right, so if we look in index.php, this is where all of our routes are going to be defined. We're installing some dependencies. We've got our logger. We've got a middleware here that just sets the API key and then goes on to the next step. Our get route is going to be very similar. Our setup route is going to be similar. I'm going to, again, sort of just update this, the way this is laid out so that you can more easily read the things that are being returned from there. The checkout session is going to be the same. And then creating a checkout session here, we are similarly just creating the checkout session and moving forward. We need a try catch block, as we learned earlier. So here, I'm going to do this. And if we get an exception, we want to return a response with the same shape as the others. So we're going to use this with JSON helper, and we're going to return the array, which has error, and that has an array which has message, which has the value of the exception. So I don't actually remember how we get at this. Message, maybe? That might be it. And then when we're using this with JSON helper in Slim, I'm not sure how we set the status code. So let's go do that. PHP Slim. Status code. So set status, response set status. Maybe that's the answer here. Response set status. Is this like a fluent API? Do we have to say like set status respond or something? Let's see. Okay. Start the server. And let's just see if that worked. It looks like unexpected token at something. Okay. Not there before? Okay. Where is this failing? 500 error. And here, okay. So let's work our way back to the actual failure. Okay, so call to undefined method set status. So apparently that's not it. All right, so response with JSON. Let's see if we can find. Oh, this is, you know what? This is Slim version 3. And we're going to say with JSON. That returning JSON. Let's see. With JSON, it's probably like second argument. Yeah, okay. So we should be able to set it as the second argument here. And 400. That, I think, should do it. Okay. Sorry for the temporary inconvenience. Let's see. Cannot access protected property message on the error. Okay, cool. So let's go look at how we read the message from errors in PHP. So from the Stripe documentation here, I want to go to the full API reference and look under the errors section that's in the top. And this generally tells us how to handle errors. So yeah, so if we say get error, then message. All right, so it was like embedded in a little thing we've got to dig into here. Oops. All right, so maybe that'll work. So if we restart the server again and rerun this, where do we land? Hey, we land with a passing test. Fantastic. All right, so now we've got Ruby, Python, and PHP are looking great. Let's jump over to Node and get that one aligned. Copy ruby.env into here. npm install. That installs our dependencies. npm start should fire up the server, and we'll run our tests. And I expect that these are going to similarly be not handling the error in the create checkout session case, right? So here we are not doing any error handling, so that should fail at the second point, and it looks like it did. Okay, so you passed an empty string for line items price. Okay, so we want to do another try catch here. And again, we want to handle the error and respond with 400 and respond with the message. So how do we return 400 with node express? So we're using express in the node examples. So res.status, res.send. So that should probably be res.status is 400, res.send. We want to send the error and its message, and that's e.message, I believe. And I think we want to return this so that we return early. All right, let's restart our server and then run our test again. And I'm going a little quickly through this rather than sort of like explaining and slowly going through it. If you have any questions as we go, let me know. Happy to slow down or re-explain stuff if that's helpful. Okay, so we're posting and it's kind of hanging here, and it hung there last time when we had an error. Reference session is not defined. Ah, great. This is a awesome error to run into, because this is the result of this const session being a block scoped variable in JavaScript. So because we're using const session inside of the try block, const is now scoped. Its scope is the inside of this try block. It can't be used outside of this try block. So we're seeing this error because we were trying to access session down here, but session is not available in the scope that is outside of the try block when we create the session inside of the try block. So what I want to do is we can either say, create the session variable, declare the session variable outside of the try block so that we can then update it with the result of Stripe checkout sessions. And we can do that using let or var in an outer scope. Or what we could do is set the response.send inside of the try block where we have access to that scope. So in my opinion, it would be a little bit better to keep the entire sort of standard const session, whatever business inside of the same block, and then plop this here so that we're in the same scope. There are going to be, different opinions on how that works. One downside to this is that we're kind of pushing all of the error handling logic to the very bottom. So if you want to know what's happening in the error case, you have to go to the bottom. And if the application logic that is wrapped inside of your try block starts to grow, that can be difficult to see and to read because you're getting pushed way down. But if we're keeping it inside of the try block, that's also sort of beneficial. So let's see if that fixes our error here. I'm going to run this. Success. We're passing test for Node. All right. Let's change gears again to yet another server language. So we've got Node, PHP, Slim, Python, Ruby working. Java. All right, let's do Java. Scary Java. Okay. I am least familiar with Java, and so I forget all of the commands. I'm going to package that up. And then the run command for running the Java sample is a long one that I always copy and paste. So hopefully it's correct. So we'll take a look. All right. Cat the readme again. I'm going to grab this whole humongous thing and then run it and womp, womp, womp. Could not find .env. Great. Okay, so I need to copy that from ruby.env into here, and then we'll run the Java thing again. It's firing up. Sure, we can allow requests for Java. And let's run our tests. Expect them to sort of fail because I don't think any of these had error handling when there was, so we're seeing the same error for Java. Okay, so let's jump into the Java code here. So under source, main Java com stripe sample, we've got the implementation here. So inside of the server, we are going to look at the create checkout session method again, and we want to wrap the actual API call, which happens here, in a try catch. And similarly, we are going to run into the issue where we have access to session, I believe. Can't remember if Java is block scoped or sort of method scoped. So let's see. So we want to do we should see the error handling example here. Right. And how do we access it? So e.get message is what we're looking for. So we want to do try catch exception e, and then we want to what do we want to do here? We want to return json.toJSON, something that we can define above, and then we also need to figure out how to render the status code with Spark. So how to set HTTP status code with Java Spark. I never remember any of these things. Okay, we'll crack it open. Status code, system.exit. Is that it? System.exit? No. Status. Response.status. No. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think that might be it. Possibly. No, we're just doing a return here though. Can I write to response? Okay, yeah. So we have response. That is an argument. Let's try it. Okay, and then to JSON.toJSON, we need to create a new map of string to object that has error, and that should have a new hash map of string to object, which is a, can I do inline? Nah, probably not, huh? Okay, map string object error response data, error response message is a new hash map. Okay, and then this thing we need to, I always spell response wrong too. Okay, so we want to do, we want to create our message first based on what we just learned, and that is we want to say like error response message dot put message, and the value of that is going to be e.get message, I believe. Let's double check. Back in our docs here. Yeah, e.get message. That's how we get at the message for the exception, the stripe exception. Okay, and then we want to say, now that we have the hash that has the message, we want to stick that hash inside of the error hash. So we're going to put this in here. We're just going to put error response message. And then this one is going to become error response data. And we want to return JSON.toJSON error response data. Okay. All right. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. If this is block scoped, then we might run into the same issue where a session is not accessible there, but we'll find out soon. Okay, so let's run this. And okay, let's see. Pass an empty string for line items. We assume blah, blah, blah. Okay, I thought that's where we were doing that catch. We should be returning early. So, do I need to build something? Let's see. Cat me read. Okay, read me. Okay, so this is saying, yeah. Target. Yeah, so I don't think that we are actually building anything. Let's see. One moment. One moment here. How do we build these? How do these actually get built? So if I go into Java and what are my build settings? Right. Okay. So my build. So I have like a little bash script that I use to build all of my Java examples, and it is called build Java. And it looks like this. pb paste type to build java.sh. Okay, so are these going to work? Right, we want JSON, we want striped Java. What is going on here with, okay. Yeah, okay. So I think, is there some sort of build command as part of Maven here? And if I say, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm a little bit out of my depth here with Java. Okay, so I believe that's the right change, but I'm not sure how to like make that reflect and test it real quick. So I'm going to save that for later. And let's move on to just adding Go and .NET. Okay, so we're going to make a new directory called Go. And inside of Go, we need a Go or server.go file. And what I'm going to do is start from the developer office hours template because that has just enough to get us going. Going. So the developer office hours in the starter template, we have a server for Go, which has all of this. And let's check out the raw. And this will have, actually, you know what? No, let's not use let's not use that one. Let's use the one from subscription use cases. This one is a little bit newer, I believe, and should only be depending on net HTTP rather than on echo. Right, okay, cool. So this one looks good. All right, so I'm gonna just drop that in here and we'll go through it. So let's see. So we're gonna load the environment variables and then we need to define all of our routes, including the setup. And right, okay, so handle setup. Okay, and then the rest of these I think are safe to delete. But let's also use, let's use the webhook endpoint that we've already implemented here. Handle update. Okay, request. Okay. Right. Okay, so here's our webhook endpoint, and we want to keep that. So let's keep the webhook endpoint and let's use that so that it matches /webhook. I think it's called handle webhook. Cool. Okay, so all right. I just got this footrest. And it came in the mail 2 days ago. This is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that. It is very comfortable, and it's kind of a game changer because I was starting to get issues with my knees for having my legs crossed like all day. And so I'm trying this out. I'm trying out the footrest situation. If you have a footrest, or how do you keep your feet comfortable under your desk when you're doing long coding sessions? Let me know in the comments. All right, little water break there. We've got our handle setup method, and we're going to keep going. All right, so handle setup. Remember, this needs to have more than just the publishable key. So I'm going to go back to Ruby for reference because this is where we have these all defined. So we need basic price and pro price. Basic price and pro price. Okay, and then we need to set these basic price and pro price based on the environment variables basic price ID and pro price ID, I believe. Let's double check. Seems legit. Okay, so now we've got handle set up. Let's run our test against Stripe Go and just see what happens. Actually, yeah, let's keep that one up. Server. Okay. All right, so we want to say go mod tidy. No. Go mod init. I believe we're using Stripe samples for this bit here. Okay. Let's see, one moment. Let's see. Okay, so do we want to go mod init? What are we using? Let's see. Okay, so if I just say go run server, it should fail because I'm using a bunch of things that, okay. Okay, so, yeah, so it's, okay. If let's take a look at what we have for these other examples. So are we using GoMod in the subscription use cases or fixed price subscriptions? server go server.go. Yeah, so go some. Yeah. Yeah. So Stripe examples, that's actually wrong, but okay. So let's use that. So go mod init, and then yeah, that feels good. That feels good. Okay. Go mod tidy. Great. That feels good. Okay, now go run server.go. Cool. This is great because we're not actually using those. So this is actually what we want and what we expect. So let's go. Keep saying go. I'm going to split this. No, that's a little busy. Let's see. Yeah, let's split it. Okay, so we go back to go. We go to go server, and we're not using customer. We're not using invoice. We're not using payment method. We're not using subscription. We are going to use webhook. So let's keep that for now. But if we go run server again, are we going to fire up undefined customer? Okay. Where is customer being used? It is being used as part of our webhook handler, which we don't actually need right now. Okay, so I'm just going to delete the code that expects that it needs a customer. Go run server again. Can't open.env. That's great. Copy the env file from ruby.env into here. Go run server again. All right, we are listening on 4242. Let's run our tests. And unexpected token at page not found when we try to create checkout session. Hey, that's great. So getting the JSON from setup passed. Now we're posting to create checkout session and that's failing. And that is perfect because we haven't implemented that. So let's go implement that now. So we need a new handler that is going to handle create checkout session. It's going to look like this: create checkout session, and we're going to call it handle create checkout session. Okay, and it's going to go right below handle setup. And I think that I have an e post. No. Post. I should have a snippet for this. Let's see. Vim snippets, and the language is Go snippets, and I think I have one down here. Echo H. Okay, so that should work, I think. Create a handler. That is the wrong kind of handler. I have one with the right kind of handler. I don't. So let's, yeah, cool. Let's add a snippet for creating a handler which works with the HTTP thing. So I'm going to call it the snippet ePost, and we'll just say if it's not a post request, return. If it is a post request, then we're good to go. And then at the bottom, we'll have our little write JSON helper, and we'll just pre-populate it with that example. And then let's do the same thing for get. So snippet eget, and we will add that there. Okay, so I'm just adding some snippets to make my actual implementation a little bit faster. I swear I had these, but I recently accidentally blew away my a bunch of my snippets because I overwrote I overwrote my my dot files on accident. Big mistake. Don't do that. Wouldn't recommend. Would not recommend. Okay. So we've got, let's try this. Let's try it out. E-post. Boom. Look at that. Okay. So now we have a post request, and the post request is going to be for handle create checkout session. And the way that it works in Go is going to be very similar to Ruby in that we are going to receive a post request. We're going to deserialize some of that JSON, and that is going to have the data with the price ID. And then we're going to eventually write back just the session ID, which is going to be a string, session ID, and it's going to look like this, session ID, and it will be set like so. No, it's going to be set based on the s.id. This ID will come from the new session. We're going to say something like, we need to create the checkout session. So let's just go grab the code to create a checkout session from the API ref. Nope. Create a checkout session. Okay, we want the Go version. And nope, that is the wrong session. Let's create a checkout session. Here's the Go version. All right, so we're going to create a bunch of params. And then we will create a new checkout session, and then we're going to return that session's ID. Right. And did I spell this right? Session ID. Okay. So that's to match this bit. Okay, so then when we're creating the checkout session, we want the domain to be set by the environment variables. And then we want it to come back to /success.html or /cancel.html. And then we need this bit to be from the domain. So we want to pull the domain out of os.getEnv domain. Okay. Okay. And then the payment method types that we support are card, and then the mode is going to be subscription, checkout session mode subscription. And then the line items are going to be, the quantity is 1. And the price is going to be passed in from the request params. So the way that I like to do this is say rec.price, and then create a rec struct that we can deserialize into. And then we also need to wrap it in some, well, actually we can do the error handling here. So we'll deal with error here. So we have like a to-do error. And then we need to deserialize the JSON that's coming in. So the way that we can do that is refer to our subscription use cases. And I can't remember if our pattern is to create a whole struct that we're deserializing into, or just to create, yeah, sort of like a one-time in place. Yeah, so this should work fine for us, actually. Okay, so let's do so. And the data that we're expecting here is the price, and it comes in looking like price ID, and then we deserialize it, and then after this line, rec should have that price ID. Okay, cool. And then if error is not nil, then we want to write, we have like a, I think we have an error helper here down at the bottom. Write JSON, we have write JSON. We have an error helper. I thought we had an error helper to write errors. Interesting. Could have sworn that we had a helper to write the error JSON back the same way that we do for these other languages. Write JSON. Okay. So if we have any failures here, what are we doing? Yeah, this is not the right shape, right? http.error is not the right shape. It's not going to send back the error response in the right shape. So we are going to have to figure that bit out here. Okay. All right. That's cool. Let's do it. Okay. So we have this. We have our incoming data. We have our outgoing. Okay. So let's just restart the server and see where our tests are at now. Okay. Right. So now that we're using session, we need to import that from here. And I believe it's under checkout/session. It might be underscore session. Let's see. Okay, it looks like that is working. All right, so let's run our test. Okay, so, all right, so we are expecting to get back a 400 in that case, that is right. So here, when we say handle create checkout session, if there's an error, we want to return, or we want to return a response that is writing the status code as 400. So let's see how we can do this. So we have HTTP error, HTTP dot, I believe it's bad request. Add request. See if that gets us over the line here. No, we didn't restart the server. All right, restarting the server, undefined. Okay, so like how to respond, how to set HTTP status code with go net HTTP. Response writer. Okay. All right, right header. Okay, and then what are all the available HTTP header? So 400 status bad request. Okay, that makes sense. Here, status. But I can also do, what was it? Write header, w.write header. And, or is that what we have coming in? Yeah, I think that's what we have. And then I think we can just write JSON maybe. Possibly. Error. And for now, let's just set it as a string. We need to put the message in there, but it should at least get us started, I think. Right, commas, it wants commas and composite literals. Error is not compatible with this tag pair. Error data. Why not? Let's see. Struct field tag error, not compatible with reflect struct tag get, bad syntax for struct tag pair. I don't know what that means. Session ID not compatible with struct tag get, bad syntax. Okay. So is it failing because I'm doing both of these? What's going on here? All right, let's see if that gets us closer. So we'll run our tests. Oh, S is declared but not used. How about that? We just print it out. Is it considered used? Or S, no. Ignore it for a second. We will ignore S for just a moment, and then let's run our tests. We got back a 500 instead of a 400. That's, I mean, close. I guess it's a little different than what we expected, right? We didn't want a 500. We wanted a 400. Okay, so what's going on here? We've got our domain, we've got our price. Okay, we've got the price IDs being deserialized. I wonder if it's entering here. Let's see. No, because it's, yeah, the failure is definitely related to creating the checkout session. Oh, yeah, okay. So this should be status add request. Okay, add copy paste, restart the server, rerun our tests. Okay, has key error to return true. It got false. Okay. Struct tag pair. All right, we're back into that same status. What's going on? All right, so struct field error is not compatible with reflow. Okay, what's the deal with this? I don't remember ever seeing this error here. Okay. Oh, JSON. There we go. Okay, so now we're passing that. All right, now let's see if I do a return. I should do like an early return here. And otherwise, if we don't have any errors, then this is what we want to return. And I think we were just missing this JSON situation here similarly. All right, let's try this again. Okay, it didn't start the server. Okay, all right, now we can put S back in there. Run our tests. 404 not found. Great, we are down to the next section. This is fantastic. Making great progress. We almost have Go set up and running. We are an hour and 37 in. I'm hard pressed to believe we're going to get Go and .NET and everything cleaned up and also implement the billing portal, but we shall see. So depending on how fast this next few bits go, we should be able to do that. So, all right, so we need to add another route here. This one is going to be to retrieve the checkout session. So this is going to be this route here, fetch the checkout session to display the JSON on success. And we will call it just checkout session. And we're going to name the function handle checkout session. And then now we're going to use our eGet method down here to give us some stuff to start with. And we can say handle checkout session. And here we need something like JSON thingy. All right. Okay, so the JSON that we're going to write back this time is actually going to be the entire session. So I can actually just write S, I believe, and that should work fine. It's a GET request. We're checking the status code, and then we want to pull the session ID off of the query string params. We want to retrieve the session and then return that session as JSON. So I believe we can say something like so. We want to say session dot session.get and pass in the ID that we got back from the query string parameters. And I am also forgetting how we do that. So how to access query string params go net HTTP. Okay. Look. Yes. Request.url.query. Request.url.query. That gives you a key value pairs. Request.url.query. Request.form. Okay. Cool. That's super helpful. Thank you so much, everyone who contributes to just writing online help documentation. It is incredibly useful. Okay, so then I'm just going to say something like session ID is what we want here. So I'm just going to say session E is equal to w.url.query get session ID, and then we'll pass in session ID, and I believe we need to pass nil when we're doing a retrieve for the checkout session. Let's jump back over to the API reference, retrieve a session. Yes, we're going to pass in, the first argument is the string ID for the checkout session, and then we're going to say nil as the second. And here we could handle errors, but we're simply just retrieving the checkout session. So let's just fire this back up and run it and see what's going on. No field or method URL. Interesting. Okay. All right. So let's see. R is the request. So I was using the response writer. So we want the request. So this was R, and I changed it to W, but it's R. Start the server. Let's see. Okay, looks like that might actually do something. It's going. Hey, we've got a passing test. Fantastic. Okay. All right, so that is working in Go. Let's also just double check that it's working on the browser with Go, because we just passed the test, but we didn't actually poke around at it in the browser. Looks like the index page loads fine. And this is looking, yeah, it all looks like it's going to work totally fine, but let's just test it out. Test. Okay, we're going to subscribe. All right. And okay, payment succeeded. View the checkout session response, and we get nothing. Okay, so this is why I wanted to test this out. All right, so the network requests for success. So we're coming back to success, but there's no query string param. So in when we create the checkout session, handle create checkout session, we are creating the checkout session here in the success URL. It says go to the domain, go to success.html. But what I didn't see is off screen here. I think we are, yeah. So we are setting this checkout session ID template variable in the query string arguments. So let's restart and try that again. And restart the demo. Let's do it with the pro. And okay, we subscribe. Should be redirected back, and the URL should now contain the ID of the checkout session, and it does. And we correctly retrieved all of the checkout session data. So that looks fantastic. Okay, cool. So Go's working. You can start subscriptions with Go and check out now. Cool. All right, so if we look back at our to-do list here, we added a test, we removed client only, we added a Go server, we have not added a .NET server example. I do think we should do this next. And then adding the billing portal, I expect it to be part of this beginning. Like I thought that was going to be the initial goal here, but we are still doing a little bit of cleanup because we had some missing bits and pieces. All right, so let's go quickly kind of plow through adding a .NET example. Okay, so I am going to say, let's see, let's add Go. Let's add our updates here, 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 and here. Let's not add this because I need to figure out how to test and run the Java step. So I'm actually going to just say get restore. Java, and we'll come back to it later. I'm actually going to add a note here. So we want to like add error handling to Java. This might be a good one as a Hacktoberfest issue. So let me create that. So we'll say add error handling Java server example or create checkout session. Okay. And yeah, so the bug or the issue is that like when you create a checkout session without a price ID, the server should respond with a 400 status code and in this JSON. Where some message is the result of e.getMessage. Okay. And I think that's enough information to go on. So I'm going to delete the rest of the bug report here. I'm going to add a label. Hacktoberfest. Can I edit the labels easily? Okay, a new label. Okay, we'll change the color to orange since Hacktoberfest is orange. Yeah. Create a label and go back to issues. Oh, what? Okay. Okay. All right, so this would be a good first issue if you're curious about contributing to open source. This is kind of like, yeah, be kind of a cool spot to start is just like add an error handler for that one create checkout session block. Okay, cool. All right, so let's see if this was reviewed or any comments. Okay, cool. Why change composer.lock for the PHP server? What did we change for PHP? Yeah, that's a good catch. I don't know. It looks like it was actually just deleted. So client and server, PHP composer.lock. Yeah, why did we delete that? Good question. All right, Thomas, good catch. Good catch. Let's go restore that because that should not have been deleted. Okay, so git commit adds or like updates samples to have error handling. And let's see. So now we want to push this. We'll check out this branch again that removes client only. And pull check out master. Okay. And I'm actually just going to remove that by bug history. What's going on here? Why is this disappearing and then reappearing? That's odd. Okay, git restore -- staged. PHP composer. I'm not sure why that's happening. Is something, something must be running. Actually, wait a sec. Hold on. Yeah, no, actually I think this was just moved. It was moved to the parent, right? We should have renamed it to server PHP. Where was it moved to? Server PHP composer.json is there, but it checkout. I think this might be still up because I have these. Okay. Close those. Okay, we're back to master. We're back to just having nothing. BR list, show me my branches, remove client only. That's what we're checking out. Okay, and we want to fix the thing that was mentioned here. So git reset soft head hat. This will reset everything to up 1 and over. And we don't actually want to delete client and server. This one, we don't want to delete this one. So we're going to say git restore -- staged of that one. And then we want to move it, git restore, and we want to move it to server PHP composer dot lock. And now it should be a rename. So instead of being deleted, why is it being deleted? Okay. Server PHP composer.lock is there. That stuff. Client and server composer PHP. Okay, now we have to figure out what the difference is. Git diff client and server PHP composer.lock. Wait, it looks like it's good now. What's going on? Okay. We want to completely remove this thing. Okay, so this actually wasn't an issue. So let's just confirm that the one that's in here is the one that matches that. Okay, so the content hash 66 66B 83. Yeah, okay. So it was moved from client and server PHP to just server /PHP. And so the commit looks odd and it looks like it was deleted, but the file is there in the other directory. So this is totally fine. Cool. So this is back to being assigned to T Merrick. Thank you, Thomas. Really appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to keep on trucking with our other branch, though. Stash. FD. Okay, so our list, jump back over here to this add specter branch. And we're going to add .NET next. Okay, so like in our server directory, we want to add a new directory called .NET. And in here, we're going to add a bunch of files. But I'm actually just going to copy these from from our examples for subscriptions so that we have like a bunch. Actually, let's copy them from the .NET or the developer office hours starter. So I'm actually going to say Stripe samples create developer office hours. And then I'm going to pick .NET, and then I'm going to kind of just like rearrange the directories so that we have something to start with. Move everything from here into here. Okay, and then I'm going to copy my environment file from Ruby here. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so actually I'm going to copy in here. Let's see, copy my env file into here. Okay. So then in .NET, I just need to edit that to add domain is equal to localhost 4242. I need to add pro price ID, and I need to add basic price ID. And these are the environment variables that we need to set are listed out here in the README. So I'm going to come back in here and double check to make sure that I'm using the right ones. Again, basic price ID, pro price ID, and domain. Pro price ID, basic price ID. Okay. And I lost my prices. So let's do that again. Stripe prices list type is recurring. And we want to find the first one that's $10. That'll be our basic price. And the next one that is $14 will be our pro price. And okay, so now that we've got those set in our environment variables, we should be good to go. Okay, let's remove the client. We actually want to move everything from server here. Okay, and then remove the server. All right, so now we've got a whole bunch of stuff. I'm actually going to open this in Visual Studios so that we can use the full power of Visual Studio for Mac when we're editing this .NET code. Here it is, Visual Studio 2019 for Mac, and we're cracking this open. It kind of takes a few minutes, so if you have any questions, now's a good time to drop them in the chat, or even just a wave. You know, you can wave. I'll wave at you. I'll wave back at you. Yeah, take a swig of water, swig of coffee. You don't necessarily need to go get coffee, but all right. Packages successfully restored. That is great. That's promising. We've got our .env file here. So if we start this, I think that it might start on HTTPS by default using an ad hoc cert, but we don't actually want that because we want to use the HTTP so that we match all the other types of server languages that we're using, or the other server examples that we're using. So what is going on here? Build is successful. Is it bringing us over here to go to localhost 4242? Okay, it's still doing its thing. Come on, Visual Studio for Mac. All right. Okay. All right. Error. All right. So it's now listening on HTTPS 4242. So the very first thing we want to do is update that so it listens on HTTP. Obviously, when you go to production, you don't want to use HTTP. You want to use HTTPS. But when we're testing, we want to make sure everything is being tested in the same way. So I am going to modify the way that this is set up so that we are using 4242. And where are these settings? Dependencies, configuration. controllers, properties. Here we go. Launch settings. Okay, we want the application URL to be localhost 4242. There is no SSL port. And we want the application to default to HTTP 4242. And this is in development. And is there some sort of, I think there might be something that's forcing, yeah, HSTS. Let's just see what's going on if we stop and restart the server here, if it's going to force us, or if it's going to try to still force us to HTTPS. Oh, wow, look at all these things that are new. No, I don't want to use those new things. Okay, local host page cannot be found. All right, so I wonder if that is related to my environment variables here. Okay, let's try this again. So I don't want to restart and install. There's so many things. All right, stop. Play. Let's see if we can get this going. Hey, that's our example. That looks like an example. Okay, cool. So then let's see, just for fun. Nope, nothing at all. Nothing at all. Okay, that's because our client and our server are different things right now. Meaning that our server does not implement the API endpoints that the client is expecting. So I'm going to just make this sort of half the screen here, maybe half-ish of the screen, and then I'll pull up the Vim instance and then split the screen too, so we can see what our Ruby implementation looks like again here, so that we are working from that. Why did that end up there? That, you should not be there. What are you doing there? Okay. All right. So here's our Ruby implementation. We have the very first thing we want to do is add our setup route, which pulls the publishable key, basic price, and pro price. So here in we can add a new route. So here it's going to be an HTTP get route, and the route is going to be to /setup, and it is going to be a function that looks like this: public async task I action result, which is setup, and we are going to return. What are we returning? We are going to return the JSON for this this response. So I actually want to probably create a model for this just to make it more extensible in the future. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into models, and I'm going to create a new class. Actually, let's see, my route request and response. Yeah, I'm just going to delete this one. Yes, delete. And then I'm going to rename this one to setup setup response. And in here, I'm going to call this setup response. And what we're going to return is the publishable key, basic price, and pro price. Publishable key. Oh, actually, this is going to be a string, and it's called publishable key. And then we need one each for pro price and basic price. Pro price and basic price. Price, basic price. All of these are strings. We're using Newtonsoft JSON to help us serialize the property, the JSON property, in the right format here so that these match. The other thing is that our environment variables in this case are coming from, on this side, we can really easily access them with .env, but I want to set these up so that we can access them from our controller the same way that we access other environment variables. So the way that we do this in the other in the Stripe or in the controller is that we're using the iOptions dependency injection through this like config options called Stripe options. And so Stripe options is configured much higher in the call stack, like in the program runtime startup. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add a couple of those environment variables that we need to read, namely the basic price ID and the pro price ID. Right now, we're not pulling those out of the environment variables. So we need to add a space in our injected Stripe options for the basic price and the pro price. Do that here, get and set. Okay, so this adds two new properties onto our Stripe options class, and that Stripe options class is configured at startup in the in this configure services method, which allows us to add this sort of like injected injected class where we can pull environment variables out like sort of at this startup point. So options dot basic price is going to be environment get environment variable basic price ID, and similar for the pro price. Pro price is going to be pro price ID. Okay, so all right, so startup happens. We hit this configure services, which accepts a Stripe options class. And the instance of that, we're setting all these properties based on the environment variables. And then when we try to access that, because we are in the payments controller, when the payments controller is initialized, it's going to look up the Stripe options in the container. And then we have a local instance variable called options that we can access these values from. Okay, so we actually want to return an instance of setup response. And actually, we need a new. We want to return an instance of a new setup response. And it's going to have its pro price is going to be equal to this.options.value.pro price. And its basic price is going to be equal to this.options.value.basic price. And its publishable key is equal to this.options.value.publishable key. Okay. Cool. And is this like a save reserve thing? Consider the await operator. Yeah, I guess it doesn't actually need to be an async task. It could just be like a return an iAction result, because we're not doing any async stuff in here, right? Does this need to be like setup response? No. I just return a setup response. I think I might be able to do this. Is that going to work? I think so. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, let's hit it. So if we restart the server, and then we go back to our, let's see, go to our tests. Let's see, check out single subscription. Open up the spec here, and if we run this, do we get past /setup? Hey, okay, so we got the JSON from /setup. That's great. Now we need to make the next route, but for now, setup is looking good. That looks like it's working as expected. Cool. So let's add the next route. So this is going to be a HTTP post route to create checkout session. And this one I'm going to make public async task for iAction result. And it is going to be called create checkout session. And it will accept, we're going to use from body. We're going to use the model binding that's available in .NET. And we're going to say this is called the create checkout session request. And we'll call the parameter rec. But we need to define this class, create checkout session request. So we're going to go back to our models. We're going to add a new file. It's going to be an empty class or just an empty file called create checkout session request. And in here, we're going to say public class create checkout session request. And it is going to have, right now, I think all we're accepting from the client is the price ID. So it's going to have a price ID. So we'll have this JSON property of price ID, and that will be called public string price ID get set. And we need to use Newtonsoft JSON. Okay. And that should be all that we need to do the model binding bit. All right. So now we have this create checkout session. It doesn't return anything yet, but we will. Okay. So then remember that back in our code here, we are reading the request. We kind of did that with model binding, and then we're going to create a checkout session and then return. So let's go back and sort of cheat and use the shortcut, which is look at how we create a checkout session in .NET. And we will copy this options block and then make it match. Okay, so we've got our Ruby version has the success URL, and that's going to come back to our domain, this.options.value.domain. Okay, that should be a thing. So let's go do that. So back here, we need to add public string domain. And we need to pass that through in setup. This is also coming out of the environment variables. Domain, okay. All right. So what have we got here? First of all, session create options couldn't be found. That's because we need to use the checkout namespace. The next thing is that I wanted to use, let's just use a string interpolation for this guy here. Okay, so success.html and session ID is going to be equal to checkout session ID. And we need to escape that because those curly braces are how you do string interpolation in .NET, but we need to actually use them because the template variable should be a single curly brace and then the literal checkout underscore session underscore ID as part of the string value that we're sending as the success URL. Wow, these are gross. All right, let's see if we can clean it up a little bit. Okay, so that's the success URL. The cancel URL is going to be this same thing, but it's going to go to /cancel.html. That's fine. Payment method types, a new list of strings. So we need to use the collections generic to use list of string like that. And yep, we're just going to use card for now. And then the mode, again, if we look back over here, we can confirm the mode should be subscription. And the line items are going to be a list of session line item options, I believe. The price will come from the request params. Now, it looks like session line item options does not contain a definition for price. That might be because I have an old version of stripe.net. And if that's the case, we need to upgrade to a newer version of stripe.net, and I'll show you how to do that next. But this price ID is going to come from rec.price ID. And then the quantity is going to be 1. And now I believe we are matching what we see in Ruby. So that should give us our options. And we're going to create the an instance of the session service. And then we're going to call create, which will actually create the checkout sessions. We want to say like var session is equal to this thing. And then finally, we want to return. What do we want to return? We want to return. ID. I wish I could do this. Session.id. I don't think this works, but I wish I could do this. New. Can I just do new thing? Does that work? Is that a thing? No. Session syntax error. Yeah, it's expecting dynamic. Can I do that? How do I inline hash return inline hash .NET core. Return inline JSON object .NET core. Is there a shortcut, or do I need to make a model, an entire model for this? Return OK. Object equals new thing. Return JSON of some object. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if we can figure this out. New object. And then we just call it, we say like ID equals this thing. But that doesn't really give us control over the way that this is shaped. Object does not contain definition for set. Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay, let's just say, yeah, let's make a response. So create checkout session response. So the models add new file, empty file, create checkout session response. You might actually want to add to this later. So this is actually really good. Using Newtonsoft JSON, we're going to say public class create checkout session response. And here we're going to say JSON property is the session ID. And this was just going to be a string. Okay. And now we're going to return that thing. Checkout, create checkout session response. Okay. And why is this no longer? Okay, so then actually we want to return an iasync task of that thing. Right? Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So then instead of calling create, we want to call create async and then use a wait here, which will allow us to use async. So this is going to give us like a nice async function. All right. So that should work. I think that'll get us. Okay. So this is still going to fail if we don't pass in a price. And yeah. So let's first fix the versioning issue that we're running into. So from here, what I usually do is I will say .NET remove package stripe.net. That will remove the dependency from this solution. And then I say .NET add package stripe.net, which should pull in the latest version of the package. Okay, so then does that clear up my price complaint here? Let's see. Successfully restored. Session line item price? No. Maybe. Hey, it's blue. It's turquoise. I like that color. That is a nice color. All right, we are doing a monster session today. We are like 2 hours, 20 minutes deep into this, but we are making great progress. And okay, so let's check out our tests, see how things are going, see where we're at. Posting to create checkout session. Okay, so yeah, I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen because we are not handling any errors. Also, no API key provided. That doesn't sound right. So where is that? This.client. Oh, right. Okay, so when I call create, or no, when I initialize the session service, I want to pass in the client. So that help us there. And then we want like a try, catch. Let's see, what do we recommend for error handling in .NET? Okay, we say do a try catch with a stripe exception. And then how do we get at the error? Here we go. So e.stripe error. Okay, stripe exception. Okay. Drop that in there. That's where the error, I believe, should happen. And okay, so yeah, let's just put this all inside of that try catch. Okay, and then if we fail, we want to return, let's define like a generic error response. So this is going to be a new file, empty file, error response. Yeah, that should be fine. Public class error response. It's going to have a JSON property called error, which is actually going to consist of public error. No, yeah, it's going to have error message data, which is going to be error message get set. And then I'm also just going to define it right here, right above, public class error message. And in here, we'll say JSON property. JSON property is going to be message, and its message public string message. So then we want to use this error response. So technically, this could be either a checkout session response or an error response. Action result. I thought I could return I action result, and then depending on what I return, it would work either way. So in some cases, I want to return that. In other cases, I want to return this. Return new one of these things. Maybe I need to implement the I action result interface. Let's see, what does this thing actually do? Do I need to implement anything if I start using that guy? Let's see. So Stripe response, I action result, response I action result. Where does this come from? Comes from there. And implement the interface. Execute result async. I thought that I could just return that. Do I need to return? See, does anyone online know? Anyone watching know how I can return these two different responses without implementing this, or how to actually like implement it? Is it if it's reasonable, like these I action results, content result, string, action result. Do I want to change this to action result? Like maybe that's what I want here. Maybe it's not I action result, it's just action result. Here. Am I returning an action result? There we go. Okay. I think. No. Okay, what is an action result? What's going on? Okay, so format response. Oh, Chrome is like super slow. When I'm in like research mode, I end up opening like a million tabs here. So let's see if we can get those back down. Okay. Yeah, so basically I want to return just like a generic, or I want to define my function to be able to return anything that can be serialized to JSON. And so I have these model bindings, but I want to be able to return either or. And I thought that I could say I action result, but I'm not responding with an action result here. So I action result. How do I bind this task? So .NET Core respond with either error or model. Let's see. .NET iAction result versus action result. Okay. Okay, all right. Let's see. All right, how do we return either? Weather forecast. I mean, the other option is that I could just drop the error content directly on the checkout session response, like make the checkout session response work with either. But that doesn't feel right. So yeah, okay. iApplication builder. Okay, none of these seem to be doing what I want. So task IEnumerable. I don't want to return an IEnumerable. If yeah, let's see. So either bad request or created an action. Okay, so this looks promising. Synchronous, asynchronous. Oh. Let's see. We're definitely getting warmer here. Okay, so we're trying to figure out how to define our model or our controller action to return to handle the content negotiation automatically for us. Yeah, so how does this work? iAction result. You can say okay result or not found. Maybe I just need to put it inside of an okay. Let's see. Does that get happy? That's happy. Hey, happy. All right, let's see. All right, so then in the error case, we want to return bad request, I think. So is there a bad request? iAction helper. Basically, we want to respond with 400. So how to .NET, how to respond with 400 status code. And let's see. Yeah, 400 bad request. But is that like the method? It's actually called bad request. I just say bad request. Can I just say bad request? I'm going to just try add. Status code. Okay, bad request object result. Bad request object result. Okay result. Yeah, okay, bad request. Let's just go with it and see what happens. Bad request. And okay. And then message is e.stripe error.message. All right, that was a little tricky. I don't know. We'll see. Cannot convert type string. Yeah, because this should be a new error message. Right, which has a message, which is this thing. Okay. All right. So give it a whirl. See what happens. Jump back over here. We want to rerun our tests once the server fires up. Okay. All right, we got it. So we posted the first one and that correctly handled the error, but then the next one did not work as expected. We got a 400. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So in the first case where we didn't pass any price ID, we knew this was going to fail and we got the 400 as expected because we should have entered this block here. So let's print out actually, like before we go too far, let's look at the server log and see what's going on here. So in here, what happened? Let's see. So we started on localhost 4242. That's great. We got a warning because we're not doing HTTPS. That's fine. Okay. Exception thrown, stripe exception. Exception thrown, stripe exception. Okay, so let's actually like log console write line, the e.stripe error.message here, and see what we're actually getting back, because I'm not 100% sure this error is what we expect. So let's just make sure that our keys aren't bad or something else that we don't expect is happening. Okay, server is up and running. We run our tests. Take a look at the server log. Provided expired API key provided. Okay, good, great. Okay, so this happened earlier today already. And we know what's going on here. The environment variables are using an expired API key that we rolled in a previous demo. And yeah. All right, so I'm going to just copy my API keys here and update them off screen. If you just give me a moment. And all right, let's restart this so that we pull in the new API keys. I'm glad we set up that error handling, because hopefully that will help folks identify when their API keys are just not there. Okay, so now we're failing with something else. What is going on here? So local host 4242, that's up. Why is our this failing? 404 for what? Let's see. Let's look at our spec helper and add a method here. Puts getting path. Is it failing just initially to get the path? Yeah, okay, so it's failing on get path. What's going on there? REST client is getting a 404 for this just going to slash. That's odd. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Let's stop this. And let's edit the startup and remove the HSTS and hit play. I'm not sure if that is causing issues or not. Okay. What's going on here? Something is awry. Stop. Oh, it's actually only happening if it's okay. If it's not okay, here we go. This is I commented out the wrong one. Let's try this again. That is weird. Did I start the server somewhere on accident? Okay. All right. What's going on? Right. So I think, stop this entirely. Is something hanging? Something seems to be hanging. I'm going to save this, close out of Visual Studios, and try to start this from the command line. Can we do that? Let's try this. So we're going to drop back into our server directory. .NET run program, which again should fire up our server on localhost 4242 here. And we're not actually listening on that port, but I don't see any errors being dumped here. So I'm not sure what the deal is. Let's see. Okay, we added or modified all of those files. We changed these. Scroll back in here under startup. Commented this out. Use file server, use routing, authorization. The endpoints are these default endpoints. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what's going on or why this isn't working. So I think we're gonna call it a good breaking point there, or a good stopping point. I'm gonna pause and then kill all things that are running on 4242. I'm gonna grab some more water and then I'm gonna take another bite at this. But yeah, I think I'm gonna just wrap up the stream there. I think this was probably helpful for folks looking to see how all of the samples are put together, but we didn't actually get to the point where we were adding the customer portal. Just out of curiosity, let's see. If I go back up here to Ruby and I try to start Ruby server, what is going on? Okay, localhost 42. Okay, yeah, so something must be. Okay. Something is hanging on to that 4242 and not letting me get in here, right? I think. Actually, you know what? No, I know what the issue is. Let's not stop here. Let's keep going. We can do this. Let's persevere. Let's persevere. I'm going to send a text and try to get some water. Send water. Actually, yeah, send water. Let's see. All right, we can do this. Let's keep going. Okay, so I think I know what's wrong. And what's wrong is that in my environment variables, I am again referencing the wrong client. So bingo. Okay, let's see here. So I was getting a 404 because I was trying to retrieve a client or the HTML from a client directory that was a different directory, and these environment variables keep causing some bugs, which I don't like. If we try again, .NET run program. Also, the demo gods are not like with me. I'm trying to like be all smooth and stuff and make this work as expected the first time, and it's not working. Oh my word. Okay. Was that it? Was that really it? Okay, that was it. All right. So we're back to a good point here. All right. So let's just keep going. So what are we doing here? We've got our payments controller. It's got all this stuff. We're creating checkout sessions. In one case, yeah. Okay. So we want to get back to running our tests. Get back to our tests here. Source of truth. No such file spec helper. It's there though. Something very odd is happening. What? Did I change this? Spec helper. There we go. All right, so now we want to fire up our server. So we're going to go into checkout server.net, .NET run program. Should start our server. And here we go. Let's restart this. All right, that is fantastic. We are doing great. We have passed the create checkout session. Both of the tests for creating the checkout session are now working successfully. So now what we want to do is add a new route to the server. So I'm again going to open this in the server.solution in Visual Studio for Mac. And we're going to go back to our payments controller, and we're going to add a new route here. It's going to be a get route, and this time it's going to be a get route for retrieving the checkout session. So we're going to actually let's just use this. It's going to be a get for checkout session, checkout session. And it's going to, let's see, in the query params, we're going to have one query string argument, which is session ID. I believe we can do that with. And then we want to retrieve the checkout session. So we want to say, we want to use another instance of this session service. So we'll new up an instance of the session service, and then we can say service.getAsync, and we want to pass in that session ID. And that should give us back a checkout session, which we can return. Okay. I guess okay. Let's see. Then we should be able to run this. And once it's running, cool. That looks good. Let's run our tests. Okay, tests are passing. All the tests are passing for .NET. So we're good. Thank you for persevering with me. You convinced me to get over my my hump there. Yeah, that was super weird. The environment variables are right, and then I updated the ID for the server and then overrode it, and then things broke again. But yeah, those environment variables they have to be kind of just perfect in order to work. Okay, so let's go through the flow just to make sure that we get back to the right spot as expected for checkout here. Okay, and we're working with .NET now. And we're going to redirect back, and we do see the checkout session. That's stupendous. We love that. Okay, that's great. Cool. We're looking great. All right, so now we've got these done. How can I strike through? Is there no strike through? Format strike through text. That's what I did, but it doesn't. I think it's like the hotkey for. It's also the hotkey for like triggering one password, the one password thing. All right, so adding the billing portal. This is where we're going to have some fun. This is where things get juicy and where stuff is going to change a little bit. So let's add all of this that we've created. Add .NET server example, and we'll push that up. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit spicy, because we need to add, now we want to add support for the billing portal. Now we have a couple of different options. One is that when the user comes back to this successful checkout page, they have a customer ID. We have a customer ID right here that we could use, and then we could add a button to this page where we just redirect to the customer portal. That would be kind of slick. Another alternative that I'm thinking is that we could just store the ID of the customer in an environment variable and assume that you have some authentication system set up. And the authentication system would allow you to look up the logged in user and grab their Stripe ID, their Stripe customer ID, and then use that for the checkout portal. I'm kind of thinking that, yeah, because in order for the example, like I wouldn't want folks to be able to just or to pass a customer ID from the client and create a checkout session URL and then redirect based on that. So I'm definitely thinking that. Well, actually, you know what? Yeah, I think we should store it in an environment variable. So let's store the customer ID in an environment variable. And then on this page, we can add a button which says redirect to the customer portal. And it will redirect to the customer portal with that customer. And then also, when we create the checkout session, we'll pass in the ID of the customer. That way, we can sort of simulate the fact that you have a database by looking up the customer, by having the customer's ID in an environment variable. And all the checkout sessions that you would create within that test mode would all be related to the same customer, which I think is fine. In practice, you would probably create your Stripe customer and associate their customer ID with your user ID in your database when you're registering for whatever system, or yeah, like when they're doing their first sign up for your SaaS product, right? You would create a Stripe customer object, store their ID in your database, and then when they're authenticated, if they go through checkout or if they start a subscription, you would use that customer ID. So yeah, let's do that. Let's store the customer ID. Let's store a customer ID in the environment variables. And then we will use that customer ID when we're creating new instances of checkout sessions. And then we'll also use that customer ID when we're redirecting to the customer portal. So I think what I want to do is push this or like make PRs now for these. So let's check out subscription. Check out, let's see. Check out single subscription. So my one PR that Thomas Merrick reviewed, that was his only sort of gripe about it. And I think, yeah, so he should be out for the day for sure. So this is totally safe. If we need to, we can roll it back. It's fine. Out master, get pull. And then I'll rebase my add spec branch on top of master. Then we'll push this up, and I don't think anyone's around necessarily right now to give us a look, but do that. So let's push. And then we can come back over here and create a new pull request for this add spec thing, which actually like update checkout single subscription sample. Multiple updates. Yeah, sure. This one I want Dawn to review. And these include like, yeah, so what did we do here? We added support or add spec. We also added Go server. We also add .NET server. We also what else did we do here? Okay, so we got to get rid of that README and probably, yeah, so we want to like make sure we have we're ignoring all the artifacts that are created as the result of using .NET here. So I'm going to just like wipe those out using the .getignore that we have for the subscription use cases here. So what have we got in our .getignore for? I think those are the ones for .NET. Yeah, get restore stage for server.net. Get add. There we go. That's a much smaller, tighter, and directly related sample. And then we also want to edit this thing so it's not. So you should be able to say like .NET run program to get it started. That's not enough of a README, but you can come back and update it. Because I reset, I need to force push. All right. So we're going back to our PR here. We're going to open this PR, and this is basically what we're doing. And I will assign it to Dawn to take a look at, and hopefully it's just like taking a quick scan. I'm going to ping Dawn and let her know. Okay, so all right, so now let's just check out another branch. Add portal. And what we want to do here is let's see, so the very first thing we want to do is in the environment variables, we want to add a new thing called customer. And this should be like cus ABC123. And when people set this customer ID, then we will use this ID for the ID. Yeah, so this is going to be your like Stripe subscription data. It's like the customer, let's see, the authenticated customer's ID. In practice, this will come from your database. Okay. And okay, so what we want to do here is we want to say on the server, let's start with Ruby. Let's start with Ruby. So on the server, when we create a checkout session, we also now want to pass in the customer ID. That's going to be env customer. Okay. And let's add a note. This is the ID of the Stripe customer object. Typically, you'll create the Stripe customer when a new user registers for your application. Here you can pass that ID along to associate checkout sessions with a given customer. Okay, and then in Vim, you can use this GQ thing. So you can visually select a bunch and then say GQ, and that will automatically like sort of format things for you. Super nice. Okay, so now we should be creating Stripe checkout sessions with that customer. So let's jump back. Actually, let's make sure that their server is stopped over here. Okay, stop. Yeah, close project. Get out of here. Go away. Actually, you know what? Before you go too far, yeah, whatever. I was going to say we can start the updater while we're working on these other languages, but it's okay. All right, so let's see. So Ruby, let's see. Ruby server. Oh, wait. My environment variables do not have a customer ID yet. So customer is going to be, let's just say Stripe customers list limit 1 piped JQ dash data 0.id. And that should give us the ID of a customer. Okay, I'm going to grab that and use that customer ID. Okay, so now I'm going to copy that environment file into here, into Ruby, into Python, into Node, into Java, into PHP Slim, into PHP, into, I think that's all of them. Okay, so now if I say Ruby server, I should start up a new server on localhost 4242. And when I go through checkout now, it should be creating the checkout session and associating it to the customer with that ID that we just printed out. So cus I45, this customer ID, if I go to my Stripe dashboard, this customer ID will be the ID of the customer here. Let's see. So if we go to test mode, customers, and then I search for that ID. So this customer, Jenny Rosen, who right now has one successful payment, when we go through checkout again, we should see a a new $5 subscription. So let's go here. Oh, you'll see there. Okay, so the email is populated. That's great. Let's change the email to like +123, just so that we can tell that we're working with the same customer. Okay, subscribe. We are subscribing that customer, and boom, great. All right, so now let's refresh the page over here and make sure that that new subscription is associated with this customer. And oh, wow, that's super tiny. It's kind of hard for you to see, I'm sure. So we have this customer, and the email address was updated. That's great. And now they're subscribed to this new price of, interesting. Is that the right price? Oh, it was. Okay, 14. Okay. $14 a month. All right, so that is looking good. Okay, so now we've got that part working. Now what we want to do is when the customer is redirected to this page, we want to add another button here next to restart demo that says redirect to customer portal or manage billing or something. So let's go to the client, and on the client, we want to add a new button on the success page next to the existing button. The current button says restart demo. The new button is going to say manage billing. And the new button is actually going to be a link. And the link is going to go to our server, manage billing, or customer portal. Let's do customer portal. Okay, so right now this is created as a GET request. Let's actually make this a POST request. Customer portal. Yeah, we'll make it a POST request because then we could, in practice, put we could make this a check CSRF. We're not going to do that today because of time constraints, but we could indeed check for CSRF. So let's make our form action be a post request to customer portal. We're going to send this post request, and then on the server, we will create the customer portal session and redirect the customer to that customer portal. All right, so let's go back to the server. Back to the server, we want to make a route called customer-portal, the post route, and we'll make it down here. So post to /customer portal. And what does this do? It says read the, actually, yeah, we don't even need to look at the request body. We need to just create Stripe. We need to create a Stripe customer portal instance. So let's go to the API here. And customer portal. Create a checkout session in, no, not a custom, yeah, create a session. This one is not a checkout session. This one is a customer portal session. Yeah, so billing portal session. So this is what we want. Okay. So we are going to redirect our customer who is logged in or synthetically logged in by looking at the environment variables. And then the return URL is going to be, we'll just make it domain. So that it comes back here. And so this is going to create a session. And then we want to redirect to that session.url. And I don't actually remember how to redirect with Sinatra. I think it's just redirect. Yeah, let's just try it and see what happens. So let's restart our server and refresh our page here. Hey, look at that. We've got a new button, Manage Billing. We click on the button and done. We have a billing portal. We have a billing portal. So now we are integrated with the billing portal. We have that super simple new route for creating the billing portal session. And then we can just cancel, click around, cancel the plan. Okay, so that, wow, so simple. All right, let's knock it out in all the different languages. So kill this, jump back over here, jump into Python. Then, nope, Python dash open, yeah, start another virtual environment, source, then bin activate, pip3 our requirements. I remember if we, yeah, okay, this is good. Great, okay, and then worksug is 1.1, Python server. Oh yeah, also we should go into our spec and update it so that we're making a request, a post request to create a portal session, and we should be redirected back. So customer portal, and we don't actually have any data to send in the payload. I can't remember if we want a 301 or what we're expecting back necessarily here, but method not allowed, 405. Okay, well, that's because we haven't implemented it in Python, but server Ruby, sorry, Python, we're going back to Ruby for a second. And we're going to fire that server back up and run our test to see if this is working as expected from our test. It is not. Why not? What did we get back? Oh, wow. This is like the actual, okay, so we followed the redirect. We don't want to follow the redirect. So how do we not follow the redirect with REST client? Okay, it looks like we have to pass a block to REST client.post. And it is going to get the response, the request, the result, and a block. Response, request, result, and block. And then it says if these things, the redirect URL is that, otherwise, yeah. Okay. So if any of the 301, 302, or 307, the response code is any of those, then set the redirected URL to response header's location. That's good. So actually what I want to do here is I want to return yeah. Yeah. I'm going to just return this early, and then otherwise yeah, otherwise we'll return the rest of that business. I think this might work. Not follow the redirect. No method HTTP body for wrong number of arguments. Where are we at? 126. Rec result. As rec result. Can I just do this? The no op, like, will it be fine? No. Okay. Undefined method body for nil class. Where are we calling? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we do have to do something here. The response dot return rec result. All right, so what is this? Response dot return. Request result block. Request result block. Request result block. Quest result block. Quest result block. And then yeah, because I'm trying to return out of the function. This should work. This should totally work. Why isn't this working? Response.return. Nope. Undefined method HTTP body. Okay, PE. What is the error here? Wrong number of arguments, 2 given, 0 expected. Yeah, so where am I giving? There's the full backtrace. Delicious. In return bang, right? Okay. So let's see, client rest client post. Yeah, because we're going to want this for all of our tests, right? So let's figure it out. So REST client.post accepts a block. How do we use that block? REST client.post. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, here we go. Response request result block. Response request result block. Return and block. So this might be like the newer version or something. We just give it the block again. Let's see. Okay. No, it looks like that followed. It followed the 302. So return error. Follow redirection. Return. When it's okay. This I think is the answer, like the official answer, right? So follow redirections for all request types and not only for get and head. If it's one of these, then user agent must not automatically request unless it's being confirmed. Okay, so follow redirection, otherwise return. Well, I don't want to follow redirection. I want to not follow redirection in this case. Then, what is the deal here? Okay, so what does this block expect us to return? Follow redirection. We don't want to follow redirection. We want to raise. I wonder if we're not getting a 301. Okay, so let's use curl. Host localhost 4242/customer portal. Just to confirm that we are getting see other. That's an interesting status code. I did not expect that. Redirect. Okay, so we're getting 303. What is a 303 status code? I've seen that. See other. 301 redirect Sinatra. Redirect to. Yeah, okay, so redirect, then the URL, then, okay, yeah, so let's do that. Okay, so if it's all right, so this was a combination of confusing things. First thing is that when we redirect, we want to set this to 301 explicitly because, well, do we? Let's see. Yeah, I think we do. Because if we don't, then it uses 303, but that's like not, I haven't seen that before. So 301, 302, 307, these seem standard in terms of what we might want to return from this. If we run this again, okay, so let's start the server. No. If we start this again, I'm expecting that when we make that redirect, or when we hit that route and it redirects, yeah, okay, great. Fantastic. So now we're getting back the status that we expect, which is that 301. And the first argument in this response is going to be the location. So we expect location to end with, no, let's just, the location is not nil. do not be nil. Good enough for now. Great. Tests are passing. Actually, we want to go back there and remove our put statements. Great. Okay. All right, so now Ruby server is working. Let's go back into Python server. Fire up the Python server. Again, run our tests. Because now our tests should tell us that the portal is not implemented. Good. Okay, so let's edit our Python server to now support this post route for creating a portal session. So we're going to say at app.route customer portal methods. We only support post for this one. And we are going to go back to the API reference here and change this to Python. We'll grab the Python version for creating an instance of a Stripe customer portal session. And we're going to grab these out of the environment variables, which we do os.getenv customer. And the return URL is going to be os.getenv domain. And then we're going to redirect session.url. I don't actually remember how we redirect in Flask. Okay, Flask redirect. Okay, so yeah, it looks like we just can import it probably from Flask. From Flask, we're now also going to import redirect. Cool. All right, so let's go back to our example here. If we refresh, no, we need to start the Python server. Refresh, click manage billing. It brings us to billing. That's great. Let's run our tests. Should also work. And tests are failing because we got a 302. Redirect. Similarly, redirect in Python takes a second argument, which is the status code. So we restart the server, run our tests. And I think that's right? Let me just double check. 301 versus 302. We want it to be a temporary redirect. Permanently moved. Okay. 302. We actually want 302. All right. Backing it up. This should be a 302. All right. This should be a 302. And in here, there should be 302. Right. Because we want to, it should just be a temporary redirect. Because every time the portal session gets created, the location is going to be a new link, a new unique link. So that needs to be temporary. All right, so now we've got it implemented in Ruby and Python. We're making good progress. Let's go do it in .NET. Why not? So we go to our controllers, payments controller. We're going to add a new route down here, which is a post route. And it is going to be called customer portal. Customer portal. We're going to receive no arguments, and we are going to redirect. Okay, so this is a little odd because we need to say var service equal to new billing portal. Actually, I don't know. Let's go look at, let's check out stripe.net and see what the name of this portal session is called. Billing portal. Yeah, so from billing portal dot session service this dot client. Our session is going to be await service dot create async, and we need to pass in options. And those options are going to be defined as a new billing portal dot what is this session create options, and this again is going to have, what is it going to have? We're going to have the return URL server.rb. Return, yeah, so it's called return URL. And that's going to be this dot, what is it called? This dot options dot value dot domain. I think it's this dot options dot value domain. Right? This dot options dot value dot domain. Yep. Okay. So the return URL. Yep. Okay. Perfect. And the customer is going to be this dot options dot value dot customer. And again, we're going to make a note. This ID is typically stored with the authenticated user in your database. Okay, and then the other thing that I forgot to do in Python, create checkout session, is to pass in the customer. That's going to be this.options.value customer. And again, we need to pass this down through the configuration. And through startup. Okay. We've got a customer, we've got our Stripe options that has a customer, and then our payments controller, this dot options dot value dot customer should be set on the session create options. Good. And then finally, when we create the portal session and we want to redirect here. So how to redirect in .NET? Sure, we're just going to return like a redirect and pass in the thing, but let's see what it looks like. Return redirect. Yeah, return redirect result. Permanent, no. Okay. We redirect. Can we just, okay, return. Good, good, good. Return redirect. Return redirect. Let's just see what it does. Because this, what I wasn't sure about is if this is going to return a 301, 302 redirect, or what kind of redirect this is going to return. So let's just start with that, and then we can fire up the server. .NET run. Let's see here. .NET run program, and then run our tests and see where we land. Okay. All right. I was delivered some water, fresh water. it's delicious. That's some good water. Okay, what is going on here? Does it not remember things? Cancel. Why? Visual Studio for Mac is quite buggy for me. Okay. Firing it back up. While we're waiting for that to happen, let's go fix Python. And we need to make a create checkout session should now take in the customer. All right, Python fixed. Probably make a test too that the create checkout session. Yeah, it's all right because our tests don't know about our environment variables yet. So we'll leave it out for now, but that we can test with just Python server.py, and then we can just see if we are indeed adding okay, yeah. We are indeed adding this subscription to the customer. And if so, then we know that this is working as expected. So 341, come back over here, refresh. We should see this 341. We should see a new subscription to this same price ID. And we do. Cool. That's great. We did cancel a subscription through the UI for the billing portal, so that's also good to see. And then when we manage billing, we are managing that billing that shows this thing that was just created. Okay, cool. So Python is working great. Is Visual Studio is not back. Do I need to like reload this? How does this work? Oh, look at that. Reload. Nice. All right, so we were in payments controller. We added this customer portal thing, and then we got a complaint about the format of our curly braces at some point. And that's because this is not semicolon, this is comma. This should be a comma. Okay, and then is everything else? The name could not be found. Am I missing a directive? Okay, so I'm worried about, yeah, sure. We have to fully qualify it because session and session are conflicting between checkout session and billing portal session. So I'm just going to fully qualify the billing portal one since it's a little bit smaller, and we use the checkout session one a little bit more in this example. But yeah, so that should be good to go. All right, we're restarting the server. Let's just make sure that the server logs reflect positive happiness and feel good results here. Nice. Okay, that's good. All right, let's run our tests. And our tests are running. Hey, they're passing. Cool. We have a customer portal in .NET. That's great. I think we're done with Python for the day. So I'm going to deactivate that and call that good. And then let's go to Node and fire up server.js. And we're going to add a new route here called ePost. Yep. And the route is customer portal. And what do we want to do? We want to, again, create a customer portal session and then redirect. So if we come back over here, let's look at the Node version. And we're going to create an instance of a customer portal session using the process.env.customer. And the return URL is process.env.domain. And before we forget, create checkout session should also be passing the customer here. Process.env.customer. And then how do we redirect in Express? How to redirect in Express. Let's see. Res.redirect 301 and the path session.url. All right. npm start and let's run our tests. Oh, failed. What's going on here? Could not find Express. npm install. When I was changing between branches and stuff, I think I blew away all of my dependencies that I installed. Okay, we're starting up. Wow, this is a monster session. We're 3 hours, 31 minutes in. Holy smokes. All right, run our tests. And we've got, hey, we're working, we're passing. This is fantastic. Okay, great. What have we got left? Let's do PHP. Okay. Let's do PHP Slim first, because we have tests that will work for this. Okay, so getEnv is how we get environment variables. We want to add customer here. And then we want to create a new route, which is, oh, what is my, whatever, let's grab this. Let's see, customer portal. And let's see the PHP version for, uh-oh, did I lose it? Yeah. So in the API reference, we'll look at what the PHP version is for redirecting to the customer portal. And create a session in PHP. And I'm going to use, what did we use here in this example? Yeah, so we're using so Stripe PHP, we've sort of migrated and upgraded from this older style static methods that exist on these classes. So like create is a static member on the session class. And we've added this new implementation which supports services. So you could call like Stripe billing portal sessions. You can have different instances of the Stripe client that have different configuration, so that you might have like multiple settings throughout your environment. But I'm going to continue using it this way because I haven't set up the API key or any of the config to work in the new style yet. So we'll go with this sort of style. Okay, so customer, we're going to get the customer ID out here, and then we're going to get the domain. Domain here, and then we're going to redirect. How do I redirect? With Slim. One day I'll start to remember all of these things, maybe. App.redirect. App.redirect? Is that right? Get use, okay. No, we need version 3. Version 3. How to redirect. Let's see. No. Slim version 3 redirect. Slim, PHP Slim, version 3 redirect. Let's see here. Response redirect with redirect. Response with redirect. Let's see. We shall give it a whirl. Composer install. Okay, and then Composer start. Nope. Let's see. Address is already in use. Who's using that address? All right. Composer start again. All right, it's running. Run our tests. Womp womp. Okay. What did we get back? With redirect. With redirect, right? With redirect. Okay, so, Smart Portal. Let's see. Print out the session just to see if we're creating, or if we're actually like creating this thing. Composer start. And then let's hit this with curl. Post to localhost 4242/customer portal. And what's happening? Okay, yeah, so we did get a billing portal session back, and we did get the URL. That's good. All right, let me do this with verbosity enabled. And what are we seeing here? Oh, we're getting a 200. Do I need to? Okay, am I not returning? I've made this mistake before. With redirect. When I switch between Node and PHP, I just have a hard time like remembering to return things. All right, let's try this again. Composer start, and then we'll make our request here. There we go, 302. Cool. So let's run our tests. And boom, nice, very cool. All right, so we've got it working in PHP with Slim. We've got it working with .NET. Let's do Go. Okay, so how do we do this in Go? Because they're both called session. How do we namespace an imported package in Go? I'm not sure. So we'll have to figure this out. So handle, this is going to be handle customer, handle customer portal. It's a post request, it's coming in. And then we are probably not going to do any of this business. And then we need to add the route up here. All right, and then, yeah, so handle customer portal. So what's happening in here, let's go back to our API reference, grab the Go version, and then, right, okay. So the problem is that session here is referring to the customer or the checkout session service. It's not pointing at the billing portal service. So how do we alias Go package imports? Okay. Import crand? Is that? Can I just do it like that? I don't know. Let's just try it. B session. Let's call it B session. No, let's call it portal session. And then I think this is billing portal. Let's go. Let's go look at Go Stripe Go. And while we're doing that, we did get a, hey, look at that. Cool. We've got a green light on that pull request. Okay, so we're going to merge that. And all right, so we're back to Go. Billing portal session is going to be imported from billing portal underscore. I think it's like billing portal just like this. And then we'll call it portal session. And then I think, I don't know, let's see if that works. And then what we want to do is we want to pull this out of the environment variables. So at os.getEnv customer, and then os.getEnv domain. A return URL. Okay, and then we want to redirect. So how to redirect in Go with net HTTP. Right, I forget. Let's see. Redirect. Is it just redirect? You just call redirect. Redirect. And that is a function on the response writer. It takes the request, a URL, and then a code. Cool. Can we see some examples? Go net Golang net HTTP redirect example. I think we can just call it directly on the okay, cool, perfect. Yeah, let's just do this. So we're going to call it on HTTP redirect. We pass in W and R and the billing portal session URL and then 302. So yeah, let's do this. And this becomes our s.url, and this becomes 302. And we have our writer, our response writer, and our request. So I think that might actually do it. I don't know. Go run server. Let's see. Yeah, that aliasing thing, I'm not sure if that actually worked. So we're going to find out real quick. And if we just run our tests here, hey, totally worked. Okay, before I forget, let's also go add the, we need to add the customer in the creation. So in checkout session create, again, we want to say like, this customer is, this is the ID of the Stripe customer. Typically, we'll create the customer object when user signs up for your service and you can pull this out of the database with the authenticated user. os.getEnv customer. Okay, and so now that should work. Okay, so I think we're working. Let's just run our tests one more time against Go. Oh, perfect. This needs to be a string, a stripe.string, which we wrap up in that stripe.string variable or a method to sort of like box it for our serialization and deserialization. Okay, starting to fade a little bit for sure. We're 3 hours, 44 minutes into this, but we're making such good progress and we're so close. I'm going to entirely save Java for another time because I need to like do some real research about how to build that and how we are shipping those targets as part of Java, but I think that we can do just one more in PHP once these tests pass. And then we will call it a day. We will call it a very long day. It was a good one. Okay, so the tests are passing. We're looking good. All right, so we've done, let's see. We've done .NET, Go, Node, PHP Slim, Python, and Ruby. We have PHP and Java left. We're gonna go do PHP now. And then I'll do Java later. Sound good? Let's see. So I think what we want is an entirely new PHP file, right? That's going to handle our post request, similar to this one, right? Where we're going to just like grab the domain URL and then we're going to redirect. Yeah, totally. So we're going to add a new file here called customer portal.php. And in there, we will say, create the portal session. Go back and get the PHP one again. PHP, and it looks like so. Oh, right. And then, yeah, we need to change the style here. Session is equal to Stripe billing portal sessions session create. And this is going to come out of the environment variables. Why is that lowercase? I don't know. Is that okay? What do we got here for config? Config.php. Okay, this is a different, okay, that's different. Is that how we access the environment variables in here? Shared. Config.ini. Oh, we're using config.ini instead of environment variables. Ooh. Okay, so we would need to have added customer as a new thing. So we're going to say cust 123 ABC. And then we need to go, I need to make one of these, a real one that has all my stuff for this to work. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that later. And we'll fix up PHP, like PHP proper and Java proper later, but hopefully that was useful. I will, in the YouTube video, I will add some chapter markers for when we actually started adding the customer portal stuff, so you can easily jump to it. But yeah, that was kind of a massive session where we went through and we went over removing the client-only versions from the sample. We added a spec. We added a Go server example. We added a .NET server example. We added the billing portal. And now we need to add error handling to Java. We need to add billing portal to PHP. And we need to add billing portal to Java. So actually, yeah. So I'm going to add, let's see, I'm going to create all three of these as Hacktoberfest labeled tickets. If you'd like, you're more than welcome to jump in and tackle those. And that would be super appreciated. Yeah. So if you have interest in trying to jump in and tackle some issues as part of Hacktoberfest, that would be super cool. I'm more than happy to help. If you have questions about Stripe, about your integration, about your business on Stripe, I'd be down to chat. And then if you have questions about contributing to open source or how to use Git, how to use GitHub, more than happy to chat. If you hit me up on Twitter at cjavdev, that is a good place to connect for sure. Thanks again for sticking around. I know this was a beast, quite of a beast of a session. So yeah, hope it's useful to someone. I will do my best to add some chapter markers after this. All right, that wraps it up. Bye, friends.